Assalamu alaikum guys, this is Sean with the Muslim Vibe over here at ISNACon. And ISNA is the Islamic Society of North America. They hold this convention every year, and we are glad to have our guest, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. How are you doing today?
I'm, alhamdulillah, doing very well. Excited to be here.
Great, excited to have you. So a little bit about our guest. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed is a physician, epidemiologist, public health expert, and a progressive activist. Native to Detroit, Michigan, he obtained his PhD in public health from Oxford University and his MD from Columbia. And he is the chair at Southpaw, Michigan, and a senior fellow at the Governing Institute. A lot of accolades.
Alhamdulillah, it's all from elsewhere.
Awesome. So you've achieved a lot. What has motivated you to get through all of that?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, you know, I was lucky and privileged enough to be born in a community that sustained me, that made sure I had the education I needed, that took care of my body and helped me grow. My father immigrated from Egypt back in the 1970s, and I also had the experience of spending a lot of my summers back there. Cool. And there, much of my family, particularly on his side, comes from a very different background of life. My grandmother never got to go to school. She was illiterate.
Wow.
And transporting from my comfortable suburban home to working class Alexandria neighborhoods every summer really showed me exactly how privileged I was, and the responsibility that came with that privilege. And so to me, the crazy thing was that we lived about 40 minutes from Detroit.
Okay.
And when I would travel to Egypt, right, I'd take about 12 hours to get there, and I would travel about 10 years difference in life expectancy.
Wow.
But if I were to travel the 45 minutes south to Detroit from where I grew up, I'd travel that same 10 years difference.
Wow.
And that to me is astounding, that in the richest, most powerful country in the world, we have those kinds of disparities. And so I wanted to be a doctor to do something about that, and came to appreciate that there's very little one doctor in a system can do. And that's when I broadened my horizons and focused a lot more on public health.
Great.
And did my PhD there, and then got the opportunity to serve that city of Detroit as health commissioner for a couple years and rebuild the department after it had been shut down. And in that role, came to appreciate just how much what we can do is driven by the political decisions of leaders who we elect. And this was during the time of the Flint water crisis, which is a city just 50 miles north of Detroit. And also, you know, right during when Donald Trump was both campaigning and ultimately got elected. And at that point, I said, you know what? Maybe I should take a different tack, and I decided to run for office in Michigan. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you mentioned that Flint water crisis, right? Something big, and it's something still going on.
That's right.
Going through that process of being in the public health department and all that, there was probably a lot of like bureaucracy and red tape. Through that process, how do you stay grounded? I'm sure it's pretty frustrating to go through.
Well, I think it's really important for folks to keep their eyes on a mission and to ask themselves every day what they can do to advance that mission. There's something about getting ground down and getting frustrated I just don't think we have the privilege to do. You know, I told you about my grandmother, and I told you about my family, and I told you about the contrast between my experience and theirs. And how dare I get frustrated at the door and just be like, well, you know what, I'm just taking my ball and going home. We don't have that right so long as there are people suffering the consequences of that red tape and those bureaucratic systems that grind them down. And I think when you center the people you're leading for rather than the people you're leading against, it becomes a lot easier to lead. And to lead with a smile on your face and to do what you need to do every day. And some days you're going to fall backwards, but you know, that only shows you how much further you have to go and also how far you've come. So one day at a time, every day, just deciding that you're going to do what you can today to move that ball forward.
That is the attitude. That's amazing.